Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. So, I did my drum take and I'm pretty happy with it. So it was time to do a little post-production. I don't do much. All I do these days is I use this cable here to connect the unit to my MacBook Pro. This is an old MacBook Pro that I just leave up here. I've got a new one at home, but I never bring it up here because I don't want to break it, like drop it or something. I actually dropped it like the first time I brought it up here. So I don't want to break it, and so I just plug into this old guy. And it works fine because Audacity is a light program and it's free and blah blah blah. So anyway, what I do is I just connect to Audacity and then I take each track. So there was only 4 tracks, right? Snare drum had its dedicated mic, left overhead, right overhead, bass drum. That's four tracks. So what I do, took the snare drum in, right? Made sure it looked good. It's the best snare drum I've ever recorded. It just looks so good. It's in the perfect amount of space in the track. It wasn't like all the way to the top peaking or looking a little puny. Didn't have to amplify it, but like I don't think I even touched it. And then I went to classic filters and just cut it off a little bit, like 0.5, 10 dB, really, I mean 10 hertz. I don't cut off much, just enough so that if there's any muddy stuff you won't hear it. But I want to hear, I used to cut it off much higher. And I just want to hear the robust bass. I just feel like I'm missing it if I cut it off too much. I feel like I'm missing that boom. Maybe it's the zoom. I don't know. So snare was good. I bring it in. Once I've done my work on it, which is just those 2 things: amplify if needed, classic filters to just cut off the high pass, cut off any low that's not needed. Then I'm going to drag it to the desktop, bring it into the Zoom, and rename it and drag that in. So now I got 2 snares, snare A and snare B. Then I do the low overhead, same way, low overhead A, low overhead B, right overhead A, right overhead B. Finally, bass drum, 2 of those. So now we have 8 tracks. Started off with 4, I double it. And the reason I double it, I learned this a long time ago reading the Zoom forum, it just makes things sound better. Don't know why. The unit is not, the most pro unit you're ever going to run into. It's like a prosumer unit. I guess probably even considered consumer unit, but maybe prosumer. Kind of like the way the Tascam tape decks used to be. So it works great and it sounds good, but you have to kind of be aware of all the little downsides and inefficiencies, like the phantom power is not too good, not very robust, and you're just missing some robustness, I think, in the sound. So I get around it by just doubling the drums. I'll double the bass. The guitars I do 2 tracks and that seems to be fine. Vocal I double as well. Not double it like sing it double, but just use it twice so that it's bigger. Adds like 3 dB probably across the board to each track by doubling it. And it just seems to work. So now I have 8 tracks of drums and I put them on the back row, 17 through 24. And you do that by going to the track button. You hit the enter switch and then you go to whichever, you go to file and then you pick the track. And I'm going to snare A, snare B, left overhead A, left overhead B, right overhead A, right overhead B, bass drum A, bass drum B, and that fills up 17 through 24. And then I just hit exit and then I'm going to go, let me take the track button back to the first one. Yeah, and just make sure everything else says new take. So I've kept originals. The original mono tracks that, say mono 003, 004, 05. It starts with 000, but I had some other guide tracks and stuff. So my snare drum was actually mono 003, 4, 5, and 6. Well, those are still sitting in there because if I want to go back and do anything EQ-wise or change anything with the settings, I'm going to go back to that original track, not the one that I've already messed with. That one's already been digitally altered and it's basically garbage if you don't like it. You just erase it and start over from the original one. That's why I never delete any of the original stuff because that's like your master tape. You're going to go back and use it later if you need to. Okay, so next, I want to play it back just so we can all hear what it sounds like and just make sure that everything's okay. I tested the arrangement, sang along to it, make sure that I didn't screw anything up. And then I'm just checking for distortion pops, just anything weird that might make the track not usable. Hopefully it's not too loud here. I noticed this one sounds really bassy, so if everything sounds kind of thick and low, it's just because it's a one coaxial speaker that produces more bass than mids and treble probably. Okay, so let me just let's just isolate the tracks first, so that we can. Well, let me just play the beginning of it just so you can hear how it starts, and then we'll isolate. So that's its tempo is 138. It's good there. Should watch the light and make sure I stayed on tempo the whole way through. I noticed that on the choruses the bass drum was a little hotter, so I was hitting the bass drum harder with my foot. All the things that happen in the heat of tracking. Okay, so let me just isolate this. We'll start with the snare, so you can just hear the snare on its own. Okay, this is the snare just once now. Take one of them off. So that's just by itself, the original snare. That's it. Now watch it, just add this other, the doubled one. Way better. Alright, so now I'm going to add the left overhead. Right overhead. Bass drum. Okay, it seems okay, and what I did, here's how I ended up doing the end. I wanted to do it like have an 8 count, like, you know, 4 times twice, since it's 4/4. It just seems to make sense to make it 8 times. And so I counted the first, I did 7 of those, and then the 8th time is the come down the whole note at the end. So it's 8 times total, you know, like 2 sets of 4, which seems to make sense logically, you know, with it being 4/4 and all that. Okay, so the other little thing that I often do, and this will give you some more robust tone, is, okay, so everything's done, right? I've got it all in there and everything sounded good. While I was playing back, I was doing it. I don't know if you could tell the changes. But what I was going through on each track was hitting pan EQ, and then just going to each one and going 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, high 5, mid 5, low 5. Just try that. I haven't added any reverb or chorus. I can always do that, but there was a lot of natural reverb. There's a lot of natural reverb in this room, you know, in this hallway, and I just use that to my advantage to get that when the levee breaks tone, you know. And I don't usually add reverb, but you can. But try the 5-5-5 thing just to pick everything up. Don't ask me why it works. That's another thing I read on the forum back in the day. All right, so I'm happy with these drum tracks. These are like some of the better drum tracks. And when I think about what this song's original drum track sounded like, just pathetic. So this is a major improvement. So no matter what I tell myself, I get down on myself or whatever, I know that these recordings are better than the ones I made like 1.5 to 2 years ago. Because I probably recorded that up to 1.5 years ago. Yeah, like 1.5 years ago. So maybe up to 2 years ago. So I've made some big improvements. I've been, you know, going at this, and that makes me feel good to know that an original recording that I was happy with was one of my songs that people seem to like better. I can make the drums sound so much better now just because of time in the saddle, I really think. You know, it's not much knowledge or anything, just, you know, acquired and attained over time, but I think it's mainly just doing it. The time in the saddle thing just kind of reveals the little secrets, and then you just get better. All right, so hopefully everyone is doing great with their projects. This is going well, so I'm hoping that the guitars are just as easy, and I don't see why they won't be, especially if I have a good attitude going in. I'm excited about my new song. If for some reason the guitar is taking a while, I'll just switch to that, start getting the drums together on that tune, maybe just record the drums to that. So we'll see what happens with the guitar. I'll call them Tuesday. But if the guitar is ready Tuesday, I'll be recording guitar, bass, singing, rapping this one. If not, I'll start on the drums for the new one. And then also be writing new songs or trying to write new songs. All right, so hopefully everyone else is working on their projects. Their playback is sounding good. The recording techniques are working. Hopefully the little bits of advice that I'm giving are useful in some way. Try the 5-5-5 thing on the pan EQ when you're playing back. Try doubling the tracks. Make sure your tracks are hot coming, you know, when you're recording. And have fun. All right. If there's anything I can do, if anybody needs any help, got any questions, anything, just get in touch with me through the YouTube thing, and I'll do what I can. All right. Next time.